Hi, everybody. This is Kyle Houchins. I'm a tech and a trainer for McNeil, and I was wandering along one of the local beaches here in Seattle, freezing because it was cold, and I saw this little toy sticking out of the sand that somebody had left behind, and it was this little plastic sand mold that was shaped like an airplane. And I picked it up and I stuck it in my pocket, and I thought, it's kind of an interesting little shape. And I've been kind of turning this over in my head for a while and decided that this actually would be a very cool kind of my first SubD model kind of video. So I did a little doodle on it. There's a few things I didn't like about it, so I redesigned it. But I did a little doodle of it, and I just wanted to walk through a build on this for anyone who's just getting started trying to figure out what SubD is all about. The shapes on this plane are really well suited for SubD. These kind of bubbly little forms are really great for SubD. So let's talk about that. And as always, the way I bring in an image is we use the picture command. So we'll start from scratch. We're going to run the picture command. We'll find it on our desktop and we'll bring it in. And this file is set up in inches. This thing's really tiny. It's only about 4 inches long. So I'm just going to draw a line that is 4 inches long. And I'm going to scale this image using my line. And I'm just going to snap to the end of that. And I know that now I'm about 4 units long. So I'm going to stick this image on its own layer. So I'm going to just rename one of the layers that are existing. I'm going to call it image. And we're going to click on this. And we're going to change it here. And I'm going to go to the perspective view. I'm actually going to slide this out of the modeling window. And the reason that I do that, if you've seen any of my other videos, I do this all the time. But the reason I do that is because I don't want this, especially in shaded mode. You can't see what's going on. So if you take this and you just slide it back, you can still see what's going on even though the model's here in the front. So that's why I do that. The other reason I like to assign this to an image is now we can lock this and we can hide it or show it when we want to. Before we lock it, I want to go to the material properties on this, and I'm just going to change the transparency a little bit. I'm going to fade it out so it's a little bit easier to model over, and also so you can't see my squiggly line work on the drawing. We'll go back to the image, we'll lock it, and then we can get started with our build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start this in top view, even though we're in the front. Actually, it would probably make sense to just take this image and flip it. So let's do that. Let's unlock it. Let's rotate this -90, and let's slide this in the top view, and we're going to line it up vaguely centered, and then I am going to do the same thing I did before, which is to slide it kind of out of the modeling window so I can see what's going on. All right, now that we've got that position, let's lock it up. Now, there's 4 forms on this, right? We got 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So this is going to be a really simple model, but within that simplicity, there's some devilish little details that are important to understand about SubD. So let's go to the SubD tab. Let's start with a single SubD plane, and we're going to set our X and Y count to 1, and we're going to do this from the center. And I'm just going to stab that at 0, and I'm going to pull that out to about the approximate width of the plane. Now, if you're in smooth mode, you'll notice that nice square just turned into a kind of an ovally rectangle. Just hit the tab key and it'll go back to being a square. And we're going to do this in wireframe. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to slide that so that this edge is kind of at the apex of this curve right here. And then I'm going to shift control drag. If you're on a Mac, you're going to command shift drag. And I'm going to slide this to here. And then I'm going to scale it down a little bit. And then if I hit the tab key, you can see that it's starting to pick up the front of that. Now, we're losing the detail in the back because there's not enough stuff here to go, to make this next shape. So we'll take care of that next. So shift control click on an edge. There's an extrude dot on Gumball. You're just going to pull that out to about halfway, and then you're going to pull it out one more time. Now, this edge is still highlighted, so let's just take advantage of that, and we're going to just bring that down, and then we're going to shift control click this edge, and we're going to scale that down. Now, if we hit the tab key, we can see that we're pretty close to our shape. We need to do a little bit of adjusting, so let's shift control drag, and we're going to just scale that out. And I'm using scale because it does it symmetrically. And I'm going to do this. And the last thing I'm going to do is grab this using tab to go back and forth. And I'm going to just make that a little closer and nail that down. And so two things would be noticed. First of all, how sloppy and wiggly my sketch is. You can see, how uneven the lines are symmetrically side to side. That's fine. I'm going to use the model as the guide for my design. I'm going to just use the sketch to kind of, get me where I need to go. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to switch back to hit the tab key and go back to this. I'm going to do the same thing again, and I'm going to stab another quad, and I'm going to do that from the center at 0. And I'm just going to pull out kind of a random size, and then I'm going to slide this back. And again, if you're in smooth mode, just hit tab and it'll go back to smooth mode, or to box mode. And so I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to scale this to about there. And then I'm going to control shift drag this edge. And I'm going to pull this. I might be able to get away with doing this with just one. Now, I'm going to edit just a vert. So I'm going to control shift drag just this corner, and you'll see just a vert lights up. And then I'm going to move that to there. Now, let's tab. We're pretty close. Let's go back here, and I'm going to just pull this back just a hair. Tab. And you can do edits in smooth mode, but I always caution that, because you want to make sure that you are getting your detail right in box mode before you start messing around with smooth mode, because you can really make a mess out of your box mode if you want to. Now, I've got this shape designed the way I want it, and I need to flip it over to the other side. So let's add some symmetry to that. And I'm going to pick this. I'm going to go to the reflect, and I'm going to start the reflection plane at 0, and I'm going to accept that, and it's going to reflect that across the center line. And you'll notice that it took this edge with it, and it combined the center one into one single quad, which is what we want. You can see that we're getting a pretty close approximation of our shape. Maybe we need to pull this out a little bit, and maybe we need to talk more about my scrubby line work here, but that gets us pretty close to our shape. Now, I could go through this process again, but why? I'm going to just steal this, and then I'm going to go to the front view, and I'm going to rotate this 180, go back to my top view, bring it back here, and I'm going to scale this down. And the reason I like to steal stuff like this instead of remaking it is it gives you a flying head start on kind of your family of shape. And so you end up with stuff that feels like it's supposed to go together instead of just making it up from scratch. So I'm going to just expand that a little bit, Control Shift click, and get my shape kind of like that. Maybe these 2 points need to come in just a hair, just to give it just a tiniest little bit of taper. And so we've got 3 of our 5 main shapes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Did I count that right? So the last one we need to make is the bubble for the canopy. Same thing. We're going to do the exact same thing. Put it at the center, and I just like sticking it at 0 so I know that it's dead centered. And I'm going to pull one out that's kind of the width of our canopy. And then I'm going to Control Shift drag, stick that there, take advantage of the fact that it's already selected. And then I'm going to Control Shift click, extrude, scale, and then flip it into box mode and just double check and see how it looks. And it looks really good. Like it's lining up down here. Obviously my sketch is not entirely symmetrical. Otherwise we would be, you can see where my symmetry's failing me, but I think generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I may pull that back just a hair. So we've got the basics. Actually, we need one more, sorry. Let's throw one more, 0, and we're gonna just line it up with that, the edge of that vertical tail there. And Control-Shift-Drag, bring that here, and it has some taper to it. So we can see if it's a direct taper, we don't need any extra pieces, right? If it just tapers from one end to the other, but if it needs to have, you know, a predictable, like the shape is changing from front to back, we might need to add another edge. So I'm going to use the Insert Edge tool. I'm going to stick one kind of right in the middle, and then I'm going to scale this one out just a little bit like that. And that gives us a little bit more control over the shape because now I can control, you know, what's going on there. And then I might grab this edge, pull it forward a little bit, and I might grab this edge and I might scale it a little more tapery. All right, so we've done most of the work that we need to do, and we haven't really done anything other than laid out a single plane, extruded a couple of edges. We used Control-Shift-Click and extrude on the gumball, Command-Shift-Drag, extrude on the Mac. And we basically are at a point where we can start, you know, having some fun with this. So let's add some thickness to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the solid offset, and we're going to just solid offset the body first. And the distance on this, I have no idea how much the distance is, so let's measure it and figure it out. If we go to the top view and we throw a little dimension on this and we say, what's that dimension? That's 120. So we'll use that. So let's add some thickness to this, and we're going to do this in the SubD menu. We're going to do a SubD offset, and we're going to pick the SubD here, and we're going to figure out how much we need to offset. And we're going to do that just by measuring, and we're going to come down here and say, how much is this? It's about 118. I'm going to just call that 120 for a round number. So let's add some thickness to this SubD. So we're going to go to the SubD menu. We're going to use offset, and we're going to use 1.2 for our distance. Our solid is going to be yes. Both sides going to be no. Delete input yes. And we're going to just run that. And it gives us this little shape. Now, it's got a crease on the top of it that we want to get rid of. So I'm going to double click this. And we're going to remove creases. And you see that we get this nice, beautiful little bubbly shape. Right? All directions. Good to go. Now, we can edit this, we can modify it, we can do anything we want to it. So if we grab this and we say that this needs to taper or something like that, that's fine. And to get our reference for the side view now, maybe what I'm going to do is unlock this. I'm going to copy paste, and then I'm going to rotate this 90. And let's bring this up to the side view where we can reference that. Something like that. And then we'll go ahead and take this and move it out of the modeling window like that. And we'll lock it again. And now we've got two reference images. If we go to wireframe, we can see right through it. We can see what we're doing. And then we can Control-Shift-Drag and start modifying our edges a little bit. And even though you can't see the SubD, we know that this is the edge, right? We know this is the apex of the edge. So if I line up those little points with the edge of my drawing, I'm fairly certain that that's going to line up the way that we want it to line up. And we can look at this like maybe in ghosted view or something like that, and we can see the drawing a little bit. Or if we needed to, we can unlock this. We can actually slide this in front of our model. And then the image is in front of the model, and we can do this and have a little bit more control over what's going on here. So let's just make that line up a little better with our drawing, and looks like the side view and the top view don't line up perfectly, so it's a very common scenario. And let's just pull this guy over a little bit like that. All right, so that's our first part. Maybe we grab this bottom part. Looks like that needs to tuck just a hair more. And maybe this just needs to move just a little bit more like that. All right, so we've got the basis of our body, and we're just gonna wash, rinse, repeat, do that exact same thing over and over again. So what we're gonna do is take this guy, and I'm just gonna use the exact same settings because one, it's efficient, and two, I'm kind of lazy when it comes to modeling. So we're gonna just do the exact same thing. We're gonna just pump that up. We're going to grab our entire edge, and we're gonna uncrease it. And then we're going to grab this part, go to the front view. We're just going to pull this up. And you can see that our shape's not perfect, but that's fine because it's super easy to edit. We can just grab this edge, Control-Shift-Drag, and pull this up. Control-Shift-Drag, pull this edge down. This edge down here, I may lock this part so that we don't mess it up. This edge down here can go back a little bit. Like that. This edge here, go like this. One of my favorite tricks is you can actually use the nudge tools. So if we go Tools, Options, Modeling Aids, Nudge, and we set these to use arrow keys, and then we set this to something small like 0.01, and then 0.1, we can say OK. And now we can use the arrow keys, and we can just sneak up on this a little bit, which I think is a great way to just kind of get this stuff exactly the way you want, super controllable. We'll grab this edge right here, and we're just sliding forward a little bit. And you can see that our shape is kind of really starting to nail down. We're not doing anything hard here. We're just selecting, moving, adjusting, comparing it to our drawing, and getting it as close as we want. Something like that. All right, let's go to our top view, see what that looks like. And I'm pretty happy with that as a shape. I think that looks pretty good. All right, so we've got our two main parts put together. You know what? Now that I'm looking at this, it looks like, as drawn, that this edge, this canopy is a little bit larger than I would like it to be. So I'm gonna just pull this, scale it in just a little bit. It was just too like wrapping over the edge there. So I'm going to just pull this in a little bit. And that's one of the nicest things about Rhino is you can design in 3D. So instead of just, mindlessly copying your sketch and saying, well, that's law. I mean, sometimes you have to, but if it's your own work and you can make the decision in 3D, make sure that you're evaluating this stuff in 3D and you're doing it the way that you're happy with, that it looks in actual 3D, because you can lie, cheat, and steal on a sketch. Models don't lie. It's either there or it's not. All right, so let's lock this guy so it doesn't get messed up. And then let's do the same thing here. We're gonna just SubD offset, and I think I'm gonna go smaller. I'm gonna go 0.5 on this. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. Oops, same thing here. I'm gonna flip it. Gotta follow the arrows. And we're gonna uncrease all of this. Double click to get edges, to get the whole edge loop there. And we're going to uncrease that. And then we're just going to keep going exactly like we did before. And I'm going to do this in wireframe because it's a little easier for me to see. I'm going to just Control-Shift-Drag. I'm going to pull this up. Control-Shift-Drag. Pull that to the shape that I'm looking for. Like that. This needs to slide forward. I'm going to use my arrow keys. I love that trick. And then this is hooking under a little bit, and that's not going to fly for something that has to come out of a mold. So let's fix that. And I'm going to just pull it back a little bit like that. And that, I think, is a little better like that. And we'll check the draft at the end of it, actually, to make sure that, you know, we haven't created something that's impossible to get out of a mold. And if we need to adjust it, we will. All right, so there's our wings. And then same thing with the rear end here with the wings at the back. And it looks like we're going to slide this quite a bit forward. This quite a bit forward. I'm using the seaplane waffle on the gumball, this thing up here, and that allows me to move in 2 directions at once, which is super efficient. And I'm going to pull that back like that. And I think that gets us pretty close to what I'm hoping to get out of this thing. Looks like I'm under a little bit there. Don't want to have an undercut, so I'm going to just pull that back a little bit. Just stuff that I noticed from being 30 years in the toy industry. All right, let's take a look and see what we've got here. And I think we are in pretty good shape on this guy. And I like that relationship. I like the wings. Maybe this rear wing is a little fat. I don't know. Maybe it's all right. We'll call that good. All right, the last thing we need to do is the vertical stabilizer, or the tail. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to just SubD offset. And I'm going to use, I'll use 0.5. I'll just use the same setting. And that way we can just take it. It's sticking out in the back, so I'm just going to shove it in until it goes away. And then I'm going to uncrease this whole edge, double clicking all the way around. And uncrease. And then I'm going to just pull this up. I love the delightful stretchiness of SubD. It's really fun. So kind of a fun way to model. And I'm going to tuck this in here. And this edge looks like it might want to come back like that. And then this edge looks like it may want to do that. And then this bottom edge down here, which is, you can't see it because it's hiding in the model, but I know it's there, is up like that. And then we're going to grab this entire thing. Again, just Control-Shift-Click, Control-Shift-Drag to get the selection of these sub-object elements. And we're just going to pull this around until it does what we want it to do. Okay? So in just a couple minutes, we put this together and we've got the basic layout for what we need to do with our plane. Now, I'm going to hide my images because I don't need them anymore. I'm going to unlock everything. And the thing that I need to check now is to make sure that I don't have any draft problems on this, because this does have to come out of a mold. So we're going to take this and we're going to select this, and we are going to run a draft angle analysis. And it's going to poke up there. And you can see that we have a little bit of red here. So I'm going to pick that edge and this edge, and I'm going to just scale them out until it goes away. Draft problem gone. Grab this edge and this edge. And to be fair, red is 0, so it's dead vertical, but we want a little bit of draft on this. So I'm going to just pull that out. I can also pull this in, which is going to tip the edge of this in a little bit, and it's going to get rid of that. I might pull this edge back just a hair because it looks like I'm picking up a little bit of something right there. So I'm going to slide this back just a hair. Ignore the preview, by the way. And you'll see that now we're all red on the bottom, all blue on the top. That's all drafted. As it sits right now, we are at 2.5 degrees of draft in the green. We're starting to approach 0 when we get to yellow, and we're 0 at red. So I'm going to grab these 2 edges. I'm going to pull them out just a hair. You can see that we're now green to yellow. Our red is gone. Come out a little bit more. And then I may pull these guys in a little bit. And you can see that we have a little bit of green there. Maybe this guy pulls forward a little bit. You can either pull back or pull forward. You know, just all you got to do is increase the angle a little bit. So maybe I'm going to pull this out a little bit like that. And then let's look at just this part. And you can see that we've still got a little bit of red there, or a little bit of green, which is 2.5. 2.5 is not bad, but you know, if our spec is 5, let's just make it 5. So now we've got all blue all the way around. There's a little, if we're being honest with ourselves, there's a tiny bit there. Let's just pull that out a little bit so that it's firmly in where it needs to be. And then this guy, we definitely need to fix that, even though a lot of this is actually going to be clipped off, you know, the stuff that's underneath. Let's fix that. So let's grab this and let's scale this out. You can see the draft issues just go away. Just pulling it out. All gone. One more little one right here. Let's fix that. And this is the kind of compromises you make when you're a designer, right? You draw a sketch and you're not doing anything to do with draft, and then you get to real and you're like, okay, now we have to make this real. So our draft angle analysis is complete. We're all in the blue range, which is 5 degrees, and the red is on the bottom, which it would make sense. So we've got our corner cavity. Now we've got a little sticky outy bit back here. So I'm going to fix that just by tucking it in like that. All right. Effectively, we are done with our SubD model at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a second, I'm going to rename a second layer, SubD parts. And I am going to copy objects to this layer, and then I'm going to hide that layer. And the reason I'm doing that is if down the road I need to make some edits to this thing, or I need to do something to this model that is, I need to come back and do some edits to it, I don't want to have to do that on the NURBS. I want to be able to do that on the SubD part. So I'm going to keep those so that once I take these guys and we're going to run the to NURBS command, I am going to delete the input objects because I made copies, and I'm going to let those run. So now I've got Rhino poly surfaces. So if you've never touched SubD before, now you're a SubD expert. Once you've converted to NURBS, you're right back into the Rhino that you know. So we can take all of this, we can just grab it, we can Boolean, and if I'm living right, this will all go in one shot. If not, we'll have to do it in pieces. Fabulous. So one shot and done. I don't like all these isoparams, so I'm just going to hide some of the isoparams. I'm going to go to my properties, and I'm just going to shut off the show surface iso curves. They're still there, but it just doesn't display them, and it's a little bit prettier to look at the model. So the last thing that we want to do is we want to add that little base. If we go back and look at our image, there is a little base around this thing that we want to add. So let's go ahead and do that. And the way that I'm going to do that is I am going to extract that surface. I'm going to use this dupe border command, and I'm going to take that curve and I'm going to offset it 0.2, I don't know, 0.15 maybe. 0.15 feels maybe 0.1. 0.1 feels pretty good. That's giving us nice little definition all the way around there. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we can take these two curves and just simply make a planar surface. Or we can take this and get rid of it, make a planar surface for this guy, extrude that out a little bit, and then Boolean these guys together. So now we've got a solid part, and that's great. And the design, though, it's a mold, like it has to have an inside. And we can try to run the shell command. The shell command in Rhino is a little ishy. And let's do like 80 thousandths. Actually, let's do 0.1. We'll call it something a little thicker. And this is the face that we're going to remove, and we'll see how it does. And chances are it's going to fail. And if it fails, we have a backup plan. So it did fail, and it would be a lot of work to come in and try and fix all of this. It could be done, but I don't like that. So let's go with our backup plan, which is to come back to our SubD parts layer, and let's do right-click one layer on, and let's offset these SubD parts. And I'm going to actually remove the bottoms of these, so these are open. I'm going to just delete those. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a second. I just want to get rid of all the bottoms of these, so these guys are all open. I think I got rid of them all. This guy probably still capped. I'm using the isolate command. I have a hotkey set up for isolate, by the way, but that's how I'm hiding everything except the part that I have picked. So now we're going to do a SubD offset again, but we are not going to make it solid. So we're going to pick this guy, and we're going to flip it to go in, and we're going to do a 0.1 offset. It's not going to be solid, and we're not going to delete the input. So that is our offset, and that seems really massive. Let's try something a little smaller. Oh, that's because it was 0.5. Let's do 0.1. And let's go the right direction. Flip, 0.1. There we go. That feels better. Do the same thing here. Flip. Do the same thing here. Flip. Again. All right. Now, we can pick our outside pieces and hide them. And now we've got all of our offset parts. And I'm going to take these, and I'm going to move these to the default layer. And we're going to turn that back on. And our SubD parts are now inside this model, right? If I hide this. Now, they have to poke out the bottom. So I'm going to shift drag select all of the bottom parts, but I don't want to grab these curves. So I'm going to deselect those. And we're going to just pull these out just a hair. They don't need to be out a ton. They just need to be out enough. I'm going to go and we'll do two NURBs again, like we did before. Let's spell it right. And I can delete the input, that's fine. And we've got, once again, our completed part. Now, if I grab all of these things and cap them, it should close them up. And if it doesn't, looks like it capped that one. Let's Boolean those together. And it looks like the Boolean failed. So let's figure out why. Let's do this one and this one first. And then it looks like the back of this is sticking out the back. So let's grab that and fix it. And I'm going to just extrude that straight down. And actually, I don't want to extrude that straight down. Let's grab that. Let's set our gumball. Double click the center of the gumball. And let's move it right to the back. We're going to go to the front view. I'm going to go to the front view. And we're going to stick the gumball right there. And then I'm going to double click the rotation icon, and I'm going to snap it so that it's aligned right with the back. And now I can extrude that, and it's going to be more or less tangent to the back. It'll be tangent enough. So let's look at that, and we're going to combine this part and this part, and then we can cap it. And if it doesn't have a planar end on it, we can certainly just make one by just drawing a line through here. And then we can use the gumball cutter and then cap. So now that's a closed object, and the stuff that's not going to be drafted is going to be hidden. So let's change our active layer up here, hide our SubD parts, hide that, and let's stick this together now. So let's Boolean these, let's Boolean those, and let's Boolean that. And so there's a weird little surface there that I'm going to get rid of. Let's just trim the bottom of it off and call it a day. Let's do that. Just going to hack the bottom off so it's nice and clean. And I'm going to use the gumball cutter again. So now if I bring back my other part, you can see that this part sticks out of that part. We've got a nice offset everywhere, and we can simply just Boolean subtract that part from the other part, and we have a nicely shelled model. All right, and if we check it, it's a closed polysurface, which is exactly what we wanted. Now the last thing that we can do is we can come in here and have some fun with trying to, you know, clean up our transitions and stuff. And because these are simply NURBS objects, we can just come in and add our filleting and blending. And I'm going to just put some small little blends on here, something not huge. And I'm using blend and not fillet because I like how blend looks better. Blend is based on continuity, and fillet is a ball. And ball fillets tend to not be super pretty all the time. So if we look at this in rendered view, and let's throw a material on it, you can see that we end up with a very nice little blend there. So let's go ahead and keep going on that. Let's throw another blend on here. And that one is way too big. I've got preview turned on, that's why it freaked out. And let's bring that down. Maybe a little bigger. Keep an eye on the preview for your fillet. Filleting in Rhino gets a lot of hate. Some of it's deserved, some of it is not. And a lot of it comes from folks not necessarily understanding how to interpret the let's do set all at 0.15. About not knowing how to interpret the handles. So if I pull this out and it gets too big for itself, see how it turns red? If you see a red fillet handle, that means that your fillet is not going to work. So what we want to do is get that so that the fillet handles look white, and I'm going to set this so it's 0.15 again, both ends, and let that run. And we want to keep kind of track of what we're doing with our fillets, because we need to make sure that we're starting with our big fillets and moving to our small fillets. So I'm going to do, that one is too big, so let's do set all, let's do 0.1, still too big, set all 0.08, and it's coming down. So 0.08 is now the smallest fillet that we've got, right? And maybe we come up to 0.1 here, and I would love for this to not be so close to that edge. So I'm going to see if I can pull this out a little bit more, and it doesn't like that. So I'm actually going to go the other direction and move it away. Maybe not quite that much. Move it away from that edge. So 0.06 is now the smallest value that we've got. So we need to remember that, because when we go to put a fillet around the base of this, we can't go any bigger than 0.06. In fact, we probably have to go a little bit smaller than 0.06. So let's do, so we're 0.06 here, let's do 0.06 here, just so they match. And then that way it's easy to translate it to the other side. So we're going to set all 0.06. And so we've got most of our filleting done here. So we know that this is 0.06. This is the smallest value. So when we do this, we can't do 0.06 because it's going to fail. Boop. See that? So what we want to do is we want to do like 0.04. Because once it gets under the smallest value, and it looks like it can't quite make this corner in here either, because that's a little smaller. So let's go smaller. And we just need a teeny fillet in there. We don't need anything massive. And it looks like that's still too big. So we'll do 0.01. And it looks like it's still having a little bit of trouble. It looks like it's finding its way everywhere except maybe here. Looks like it's losing itself there. So let's try 0.008 and just see if we go a little bit smaller if it fixes itself. And I think what's happening, I think I can see exactly what's happening. See this right here? See that little edge right there? I think what I would like to do is get rid of that, because that is a little tiny defect that happened when we trimmed the surface. And so I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to make my life easy, and I'm going to just split this in half because it doesn't look like the defect's on the other side. So let's just get rid of this edge. Let's get rid of this side. And let's mirror this over. And let's join it back up. Now, let's look at it again. That little defect isn't on that side, and it was just how the topology on the SubD laid out. So let's run another fillet or another blend. And let's do 0.008. That's really small. I wouldn't mind that a little bigger if we can do it. So let's try that. But a lot of it comes down to, you know, when this stuff fails, you have to understand what you're looking at. Like, there is no way, like 0.01 is just not going to go around that corner. So let's do 0.08. Probably went way too high. And we know that's going to fail because 0.06 is our smallest. Let's do 0.05. That should work. Still. Keep going down until it works. Getting closer. And that looks like that did a nice job. So we're going to say 0.025 is good. Now, I'm going to go and clean up this. So let's do these guys. And I'm going to do these bigger. Not that one. And let's preview that and see what it looks like. And I think we can go bigger on those. Yeah, we can. So let's do 0.05. See, that might be too big. Yeah, see how these are overlapping? So 0.05 actually works okay there, but 0.04 probably be better. See how those are not overlapping anymore? So that means that we can do 0.04 around all of that, which means that we have to do less than 0.04 for this edge. So if we do, that's going to fail. Actually, it looks like it did it. Fine, make me a liar. I'll take it. 0.04 it is. So we'll run that. We should still be closed poly surface, which we are, which is good news. And then we can do the same thing on the inside. We can come in and start chasing fillets on the inside so that we get nice, smooth stuff on the inside. So let's do that. And again, I'm going to use blends, and I'm going to use small fillets in here. And I might do all of these at the same time so that they all run together. And that way we don't get the problem with having to go from big to small. We can just do them all at one time. And if you do them all at one time, it'll calculate all at one time and it'll do it. So that looks good. See how it handles those corners really nicely? You run into a problem if you do one and then another and you try to do them at the same value. You have to, if you're going to do a bunch of stuff at the same value, it's got to be done all at the same time. So let's do this. That worked. And I do like the preview because it gives you an opportunity to iterate and fix stuff. Whoops. And we'll have to see whether it goes around here. There may be a little... Nope, did it. Fabulous. So this thing is all shelled, all filleted, all ready to go. We know it passes draft, and we can now take this to the beach and make little sandy airplanes everywhere you want to go. We're going to change from 50 to 35 to give it the drama that it deserves. I'm using the automotive environment, by the way. I like the automotive environment because it gives you these great little reflections. And this is in the environment library. It lives right there, Rhino 8 Automotive Studio. And we'll do a little rendering. And then we can take this, we can throw it through a 3D printer, and we can make a fleet of fantastic little airplanes. Or we can give it to a factory and they can cut a mold because we already know that the draft angle and everything is taken care of and our wall thickness is good and all that kind of stuff. Maybe turn it a little bit more. There we go. All right. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this gives you the confidence to jump into SubD. I hope this shows the interoperability between SubD and NURBS. And I hope you have fun building stuff in Rhino. My name is Kyle Houchins. This is my first SubD model. Go make great stuff. Thanks. Bye.